Hello, and welcome to Another Home Sold, a show about Wellesley real estate, where you hear from the experts the things that you need to know about buying a new home, maintaining your property, or whether you're preparing to sell. I'm your host and realtor, Steven.Verdelli, with Coldwell-Banker, Wellesley's #1 real estate company for 24 years in a row. Today, we have Merit McIntyre, Regional Vice President for New England for Coldwell-Banker. Merit, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
So tell me a little bit about how, first of all, you got involved in real estate.
Well, I did. I got into sales in my mid-20s and just was trying to find a way that I could, get into a business that my results were tied to my efforts. And so just found that it was a way to make a comfortable living if you're willing to work hard. And I just pursued with it, did well. I was with a company that was bought out by Coldwell-Banker. And I'll just say first, I was like, well, I don't know about this, but I was amazed at the tools, and again, it's about 15 years ago, and from there just sort of evolved and was promoted within the company, and from management to senior management. So, just about every facet of the game, if you will, and I love it.
So you started as a residential realtor.
Started out in residential real estate, yeah.
And worked your way into a manager of an office.
Managed an office, and then later a region, and then another region. So.
That's very interesting because a lot of people don't think about that. They think of real estate as a one-track career. You're there selling homes and that's about it. They forget that there's an entire huge machine behind everything that happens.
Yeah, I would agree.
That's driving it.
I think that it's real estate will always be local, but I think that it's going to be tougher and tougher to compete if you're a smaller shop with just a local reach. Mm-hmm. And so many more people go into a larger company and they have the global reach, and it's just all the tools are there within the company. So it's been nice to be able to to move up to see more of what we can offer and how we can get it done. So.
And I know you're a big advocate for bringing new technology to the agents, and we thank you for that because it really makes our job a lot easier for everything that we're doing.
Yeah, and that's good to hear. I can tell you I started with a one-sheet contract and a copy machine and a fax number that you had to put the cord from the telephone into the fax thing when it rang. So, yeah.
Those days are done.
Those
days are done. Now the nice part about it is you can do real estate from anywhere in the world.
Yes.
You can sell a house in Wellesley while you're in Rome.
I haven't tried it, but I heard it can be done.
It can be done.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
If you want to vouch for that.
I'm just saying. Great. So let's talk a little bit about Coldwell-Banker as a global brand.
Sure, I will talk about that in the sense, from a marketing sense, we spent a lot of money advertising, for example, in the Hong Kong version of the Wall Street Journal. And at first, people were like, what are they thinking? Now we're starting to see that we're getting that foreign investor who's coming in, they're spending money with it. And but the reason was that we saw the trends coming, and our relocation department, which is contracts with more than a third of the Fortune 500 companies, placed 132,000 worldwide referrals last year. 86,000 of them were single-family homes. I mean, it's an enormous number. So to be able to reach out there to find out what is available, how can we get there, how can we make that connection? Like you said, Rome to Wellesley is not a long distance anymore. But we've been able to, to sort of bridge that and bring people, bring parties together.
Now, technology moving forward with relocation services, one of the topics that you just touched base on. Vital in this market. Vital, especially with people looking to do vacation homes. In the old days, as much as 10 years ago, people were kind of going by the luck of the draw, traveling to Naples, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach, kind of stumbling into a real estate office and hoping for the best. Now with relocation services, you can do everything pre-planned from your home with a local agent, get hooked up with an agent in another state, and it's seamless.
Yep, absolutely. And everyone is now geared within the company to do one-stop shopping. So I think it's more and more where you have both spouses in a household are working. Mm-hmm. The time is limited with their family, never mind, for trying to put on a move. So to do corporate services and to have a package with your company that you have the ability to go into and have that move taken care of on this end. But as you say, on the other end, to be able to walk in to make sure that your mortgage is in place, your insurance is in place, and then you can make a buying decision 1,500 miles from here in Palm Beach. So much easier than it ever was. In fact, my first piece of property I bought, I was 19, bought it in Florida. and I can't tell you what a painful process it was with it.
I bet. I
So,
bet.
where I think today we could do it with an Amex card. So,
Well, today we just did it, a couple of weeks ago in the Wellesley office. We received paperwork, we signed everything, and everything was signed, sealed, and delivered and done. They
Yeah.
had seen the property once, loved it. We signed everything back up in Wellesley. It was great.
yeah. And they were from out of town?
They were from Wellesley, buying in
Okay.
Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah.
So it was relocation services worked fantastic with that.
Yeah.
And my counterpart in the Fort Lauderdale office of Coldwell-Banker on Las Olas was instrumental and was fantastic with my customers. It was a great little, it was a nice marriage. So on top of relocation services, let's talk about real estate across the country. Oftentimes when we're watching it on the news, it's doom and gloom of real estate, focusing on the Midwest, parts of the South, I dare to say underdeveloped parts of the country compared to the Northeast.
Yeah, meaning the other side of Worcester.
On the other side of Worcester.
Okay.
Life pretty much ends at 495 for a Bostonian. What is your input on that?
It used to end at Beacon Hill at the bottom, so, at the Back Bay Swamp. Obviously, we can measure it much more easy than we used to be able to do in terms of taking a pocket of a market. I'll say that Boston market is, still very, very brisk. But you go north of 101 in New Hampshire, and it's a different market. You go east of Worcester, and it's a different market. And I think trying to look at stuff, and I look at 4 factors when I look at the economy from a real estate perspective. And one of those is what's the unemployment rate? Mm-hmm. And Massachusetts has been well below the United States all the way through the recession and the recovery. So right now, 4.7% unemployment rate in Massachusetts is really healthy. The country's finally at 5.1, unless you listen to Donald Trump. He says it's 42%. So that's always entertaining. But the point is that it's healthy on a national scale. Certainly there's going to be places like you talked about that it might be closer to 10, and then other places where it doesn't even get on the map. But the second piece is, so the first one obviously, how they work, and the second one, consumer confidence, which actually went up again despite the stock market movement south in August, actually went up to 103 points, which is just, it's near record breaking.
Sure.
So, they have money because they're working and they're willing to spend it. The other pieces on that as well, just as an example, the what I would call it a financial regression, and what that means is that banks will harbor money rather than lend money. Mm-hmm. Somebody goes in, puts a deposit. So in a healthy economy, 60% of that money will be lent back out. When they're not lending, it's regressing the economy, and that's really the last piece that needs to happen. And so alternatively, what they'll do is someone comes in, deposits money, and they'll park the money, harbor it at the Federal Reserve for 0.25 of 1%, but it's safe. And so they'd rather do that. Well, finally, it was over $1 trillion. Now we're coming when we're below $800 billion in money just parked, which means that $250 billion has gone back out into the economy from a lending perspective. And that's the healthiest thing that I've seen in the last 12 months.
So that's what you're looking at when you're buying real estate.
Those are the 4 pieces that I look at. And so generally speaking, it's healthy. Are there pockets where they still struggle? Absolutely.
Sure. We're very fortunate to be where we are and have this growing economy in the Boston market. Let's talk specifically on a micro version. What are you looking at when you're looking to buy a house? As a consumer, when you're going into to look at properties, what are some of the most important things that you look at? What's your experience?
Well, I think on my end, it's more of a macro level where I'm not in and out of homes all the time like you may be. So majority of my feedback comes from professionals like yourself, mm-hmm. where they're saying this is what's going on literally in a marketplace. I think for what we're starting to see more and more is just easy living. What I mean by that, houses that aren't going to need a lot of work. A lot of that piece is done. People can go in. Again, it's a time factor. They don't have mm-hmm. the time to go in and do a remodel and whatnot. They want very easy living lifestyle. They're not spending a lot of time maintaining the homes. And it's interesting because even 10 years ago, it was that do-it-yourself type of
Sure.
mode. And that's where people were at now. Now they're saying, you know what, I want it done. I want to move in. I don't have time. I want to go to work. Or I want to play because I'm working so much.
Yeah.
So I do see a lot of that, and I see that just about every place. And we also see we're starting to see a lot more urban walk to work type of stuff, not just in Boston, but in some of the other cities that, some of them haven't had much activity in decades.
Yeah.
So
Walking,
a lot of that
biking
as
to
well.
work, that kind
Yeah.
of stuff like that. Merritt, oftentimes people think springtime is the best time to sell your homes. As we know, life decisions occur and people are selling their homes year round, but they're hesitant about it. But I still think that fall and winter are great times to sell your home. What is your opinion on that?
No, I would absolutely agree. I think that, in the past you can see a cyclical market where you have the inventory start to build in February, March, April, it sort of maxes out, the grass turning its green, the buyers come out. And that's a typical market. And the nice thing about the fall is that, after the kids get settled, for the most part in school, people start going out, they start looking again. And is it as big as the spring? Historically not, but it's still absolutely a great time to look at it. I'll also add, especially this year, it's much less hectic than it was in the very, very short spring market that we had this year, that people can put their home on, and that they can go and, actually see 5 or 10 homes in a marketplace and not have to worry about 17, offers on a house. We still have them, but in a competitive situation. So less emotional, less stress, and it's still an extremely healthy time to go on the market. And there's always that inventory because, as you talked about the relocation piece, people don't know when they're going to lose a job or get transferred, whatever that may be. It used to be, 10 years ago, it was, buy in the spring, get the kids settled for school for September. It's really not that way anymore. So, and I'll personally say in the wintertime, I'm a believer in supply and demand. And that's why I think in terms of selling, I think the winter is a great time to sell because there's just so much less inventory on the market. If someone said if I had a vacant home on my end, a single family vacant home, and I didn't have to worry about kids and everything else, I'd put my house on February 1st or maybe even late January because on a mild weekend you'll have the activity and it will sell because you don't have the competition.
And you've got other people that lost out on the spring market where things were just going crazy with overbids and bidding wars and...
Yeah, absolutely. And there was an article this morning in the Boston newspaper that talked about, still not having the inventory. But I'll say it. At least our company right now has an increase in inventory right now, 1% going into the fall. So a very healthy position. I mean, stuff is coming on the market.
So how do you see the real estate market moving forward for 2015 or 2016?
Yeah, if you asked me that a year ago, I would have no idea. I would be able to put forth what I thought, but I never would have been able, not anyone could, but foresee the wintertime. It was an extremely tough winter this year. It delayed the market. Even after the snow finally went away, you had so many people with ice dam damage and insurance companies coming in that we still didn't have the inventory. So we ended up with, historically, June or July will end up being our largest closing month. This year was July and August were better than June, so everything was moved. But we actually outperformed last year in terms of closings, average sales price and units by the end of August, by August 31st of this year over last year. I'll say in this, I really hope that it's a healthy market, and what I mean by healthy market, 3 or 4%, 5% growth. I think, especially in a recovery, I think it's great to see that, where people can go out, make a decision without, maybe with some emotion, but not a ton of emotion.
Sure.
Boston real estate, just the sales prices went up 10% just in those 2 months in April and May of this year. But you went and you look at August as a whole, it evened out at that 6.7% increase with it. That's a nice, healthy market. So
that's a great market.
That's what I'd love to see next year.
But even with the snow, I felt like we were still busy this winter. We were still
funny.
selling. People were still getting out.
February was tough, but I would agree. It's funny, and I, there's so many people who would just, and I love New England, but I got to tell you that this one was a tough one.
Yeah.
So, and they're predicting to be worse. I just don't see it happening.
Oh, don't say that. It's a great time to relocate.
There you go. Yeah.
Great. So, anything else that you'd like to add to viewers about real estate, Coldwell-Banker? I mean, I know the golden rule: location, location, location. Everybody knows that. Buying, the worst house in the best neighborhood.
Sure.
What else can you add to that?
Let's see. Just on it, at least from our end, is looking at the high end and the average. If you looked at 128 belt and in, the average sales price right now is about $906,000 within our company. But our company runs Massachusetts-wise about 30% higher average sales price than other firms for several reasons. But Well, one is we brand to that high end at places like Wellesley. You know, we will be we will be the strongest. I mean, that's part of our plan, and very intentional on that end. But just to talk about the previews end, which is the higher end market, you know, really taking in Wellesley where you have that's not a hard sales, that's not a hard price to get to. But as you say, a lot of those people are finally buying the second home, or they're finally, you know, settling down, moving south. I call it the sand states, but the sand states are finally recovering, you know, because the suburbs up here, you know, in New York, have the money to go and to start buying them there. So our previous program is still an exceptional way, the best way I think to get a property sold over $2 million. So.
And the previous program at Coldwell-Banker is homed over that $2 million range.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, in the greater Boston market, and we've had the highest sales this year as well within Massachusetts through our previous program, and especially within the previous program, we're starting to see some of that international activity. You know, where we're getting your Asian buyers and European buyers coming over and spending here, some for investment, some for kids in college. Which sounds crazy to buy something for $2 million plus for sending your kids to college, but
it's not crazy.
It's happening.
We like that.
It's happening. So. Anyway, so I think having that, as you see, as we began with too, but that international reach, but also that reach in the high end, you know, both domestically and internationally. So.
Now, approximately how many Coldwell-Banker offices are there in Massachusetts?
84 in Massachusetts, almost 4,000 agents in Massachusetts.
4,000 agents in Massachusetts. And how many offices in New England?
Going into Connecticut too, probably 155 or so.
And what is the #1 Coldwell-Banker office in New England?
It is Wellesley.
Oh, that's right, it is. The #1 producing Coldwell-Banker office in New England.
Yeah.
Right here in Wellesley, Massachusetts. Merritt, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Absolutely a pleasure. You're a fantastic professional and a wonder to spend time with.
Thank you, pleasure. Next, we're going to go to 373 Park Ave in Arlington. I am calling all people who are interested in doing a remodel or a flip and putting in some sweat equity. This is the house for you. Located on Park Avenue in Arlington, about 4 miles north of the city of Cambridge, this property is a 1939 center entrance colonial. Less than 50 yards to the Park Avenue Bridge, which is Route 2, or leading you right into Belmont. You need to bring your ideas and sweat equity to bring this gem back to its beautiful home. This property has all new windows, front to back living room, which measures 22 by 11 with a fireplace, all hardwood floors throughout. The dining room measures 12 by 12 with a built-in cabinet. There's 3 bedrooms upstairs, measuring 12 by 10, 17 by 11, and 11 by 10, and there's also a bonus room. The house has a walk-up attic and is heated by gas. This house has a nice leveled backyard with a 2-car garage. This is the perfect home to make it your own, or the perfect flip that you've been looking for. This house is located at 373 Park Ave in Arlington. I hope you've enjoyed watching today's episode of Another Home Sold. Remember to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. If you're thinking about listing your home or just want an up-to-date market analysis, please call me at 617-922-4714. I'm Steven.Verdelli with Coldwell-Banker Residential Brokerage in Wellesley. Thanks for watching. See you next time, and remember, home is one of the nicest words there is.